You don't realize how loud silence can be until it's all that's left between two people who once couldn't stop talking. Funny thing, the same man who used to beg me not to leave now forgets I exist until his ex calls. The night I left Boston, the snow was falling like dust over old memories. I packed quietly while Dr. Michael Sanders, to the world, was still at the hospital, saving lives and ruining mine at the same time. The apartment smelled like him. Antiseptic, coffee, and heartbreak. I didn't take much, just my sketchbook, my scarf, and whatever was left of my self-respect. Michael had been my everything, my anchor, my chaos, my husband, and then he became my ghost. He used to come home late, murmuring apologies that tasted of exhaustion and someone else's perfume. "Ethan, I swear it's not what you think," he'd say. "But when you've seen the way a man looks at his ex, that sharp, burning kind of tenderness that he doesn't have for you anymore, it's exactly what you think." We met in New York 5 years ago. I was a freelance illustrator, sketching portraits in Washington Square Park. He was a Harvard med student doing his internship at Mount Sinai. He spilled his latte all over my drawings, panicked, then insisted on buying me lunch to make up for it. That was the beginning of laughter, endless late-night talks, and the kind of love that makes you believe you've found your home in another person. But homes can burn quietly. Boston was supposed to be our new start. He got a position at Massachusetts General Hospital. I followed, leaving my art gigs behind, believing in us. I believed so hard I didn't see the cracks forming. Didn't see her, Dr. Claire Evans, the ex who came back as a new colleague in his department. She was brilliant, kind, and dangerously nostalgic. Every story he told about his day started to include her name. Every smile he gave me looked a little borrowed. "Don't be jealous," he'd laugh. "You're being ridiculous." Maybe I was. But jealousy has a way of knowing what love tries to deny. The first time he missed our anniversary, he said it was an emergency surgery. The second time, he didn't even remember. By the third, I'd stopped setting the table. I'd started drawing him instead sketches of a man losing himself to his own guilt, to his own lies. The night before I left, I found the message on his phone. "Claire, can't sleep. Miss our old nights. Do you?" His reply, "Every damn day." I stared at those words until they blurred. Until my heart did something terrifying, it stopped hurting. Because sometimes, when love dies, it doesn't explode. It just goes quiet. When he came home at 3 a.m., smelling like rain and regret, I didn't confront him. I just watched him sleep, memorizing his face in the half-light. The same face that once promised forever. And I realized I was the only one still keeping that promise. So I left before dawn. I left the ring on the kitchen counter beside a note that simply said, "Don't look for me. You already stopped." 2 months later, I was in Chicago, living with my sister, trying to rebuild. I taught art at a community center, drew portraits for strangers, and tried to convince myself that healing was linear. Spoiler, it's not. Sometimes I'd catch myself making 2 cups of coffee. Sometimes I'd dream of him, the way he laughed, the way he held me after nightmares. Then I'd wake up, heart racing, and remind myself that the man I missed wasn't the man who stayed. I didn't hear from Michael. Not a call. Not a text. Until one night, I got a message from an unknown number. "Ethan, it's me. I know I don't deserve to ask, but please can you come home?" I stared at the screen for what felt like forever. Home. That word again. Against my better judgment, I called him. He answered on the first ring. His voice cracked. "Ethan, she's gone. Claire. She moved to Seattle. And I can't breathe in this apartment without you." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to scream, "You should have thought about that before you lost me." Another part just wanted to know if he'd eaten, if he was okay. That's the problem with love, it lingers, even when it shouldn't. He told me he'd been sober for weeks, that he'd taken time off work, that he'd been going to therapy. I didn't know if it was guilt or growth, but his voice sounded different, softer, real. "Can I see you?" he asked. "I don't know," I said. "Just one coffee. No promises. Just 2 people who used to love each other." I went back to Boston 2 weeks later. The city felt colder, emptier. Or maybe it was just me. When I got to the apartment, I hesitated at the door. Then I heard it, the faint sound of a piano. Michael never played before. I stepped inside. He was sitting by the window, fingers trembling on the keys. His hair was longer, his eyes sunken. The once pristine apartment was scattered with sketches, my sketches copied from old photos of us. Every wall whispered my name. He turned. When he saw me, he froze. Ethan. Just that. Like a prayer. I wanted to hate him. I really did. But when he stood, when his voice broke, when he said, "I'm sorry. For everything. For loving you wrong," I couldn't move. "You can't fix what's already burned," I whispered. He nodded. "I know. But maybe I can learn how to build something better from the ashes." We stood there, between what was and what could never be again. The city hummed outside, lights flickering like tiny hopes. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel angry. Just tired. And maybe a little free. That night, we talked until dawn. No accusations, no pretending. Just two men, raw and ruined, remembering why they ever tried. He told me he still kept my scarf in his drawer. I told him I still dreamed of his hands. We laughed and it didn't hurt. When I left the next morning, he didn't stop me. He just said, "If you ever want to come home, you'll find the lights still on." I didn't promise anything. But as I walked down those Boston streets, I realized something. Closure isn't about forgetting. It's about finally being able to remember without breaking. I thought seeing him again would destroy me. Instead, it just made me realize how much time can change people and how sometimes change doesn't mean you get to go back. The week after I saw Michael in Boston, I couldn't stop replaying it all. The trembling in his voice. The way he didn't ask for forgiveness, just presence. Like my existence alone was enough oxygen for him to keep breathing. But I wasn't sure if I wanted to give that to him again. Back in Chicago, I tried to drown myself in work. The kids at the art center were my salvation. They didn't care about heartbreak or betrayal. They just wanted someone to tell them that what they created mattered. And in that tiny studio filled with laughter, paint stains, and dreams too big for their small hands, I found a kind of peace. Then one afternoon, while I was helping a shy boy draw his mother's portrait, my phone buzzed. A photo. No text. Just an image of our old kitchen, sunlight streaming through the blinds. 2 mugs on the counter. My mugs. The ones we'd bought together in a thrift shop our first month in Boston. My chest tightened. He hadn't thrown them away. That night I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about how love doesn't vanish. It just changes shape like water. It seeps into everything, even when you try to dry it out. By the next morning, I knew I needed answers. Closure, maybe, or just truth. So I called him. He picked up instantly. "Ethan?" "Yeah, got your picture." A pause. Then a quiet breath. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I was drinking coffee and thought of you. You could have said that instead of haunting me with mug photos." I said, half teasing, half aching. He actually laughed, that soft, boyish laugh that had once made me fall in love. "You always did hate when I got sentimental. Maybe I just hate reminders." "Then why'd you call?" There it was. The question I'd been trying to avoid, not from him, but from myself. Why did I call? To see if he'd changed? To see if I still cared? Maybe both. "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe I'm just tired of pretending I don't miss what we had." Silence. Then, "Would you come back to Boston? Just for a few days. No expectations. I promise." I wanted to say no, but my heart, that damn traitor, whispered yes before my mouth could stop it. When I landed in Boston, the air smelled like snow again, as if time had looped, waiting for us to get it right this time. He was waiting at the airport, no white coat, no facade, just a man in a simple gray sweater, holding his breath when he saw me. "Hi," he said, voice trembling. "Hi," I replied, and for a heartbeat, everything in me screamed to run. Because love like ours didn't just heal, it haunted. We walked to his car in silence. The city outside the window blurred by the Charles River, the brownstones, the streets where we once laughed and fought and kissed until we forgot what started the argument. When we reached the apartment, it felt different. Brighter. Warmer. The walls once covered in sterile white now had color my old paintings. Framed. The kitchen had plants. The scent of cinnamon filled the air. "I've been fixing things," he said awkwardly, scratching the back of his neck. "I can see that," I murmured. "You got plants." Big step for someone who once killed a cactus. He smiled faintly. "Therapist says nurturing life helps me forgive myself." We stood there, the weight of unspoken things pressing between us. Then he said softly, "Can I show you something?" He led me to the living room. On the wall hung a massive canvas, unfinished, raw, yet achingly beautiful. It was a painting of us. Sitting on the couch, his head in my lap, my hand on his hair. The same pose from a photograph we took years ago. Only here, his expression was different, fragile, desperate, searching for something lost. "You painted this?" I whispered. He nodded. "After you left, I couldn't sleep, so I painted what I missed. I thought maybe if I could see us again, I'd remember how it felt to love you right." My throat closed up. "Michael, I'm not asking you to come back," he said quickly. "I just need you to know I see it now. Every time you waited up for me. Every dinner I missed. Every time I made you feel like second place. I see all of it, and I hate myself for it." His voice cracked on the last words. For the first time, he wasn't hiding behind his pride or his profession. He was just a man, broken and bare. And I wanted to forgive him. God, I did. But forgiveness wasn't something you gave because someone asked. It was something you gave when you were ready. So I told him the truth. "I don't know if I can love you the same way again." He nodded. "I don't expect you to. I just want the chance to know you again, even if it's from a distance." The next few days passed in quiet familiarity. We went to our old cafe near Beacon Hill. The same waitress, the same corner table. Except this time, we didn't pretend. He told me about the months after I left, how he spiraled, how therapy saved him, how he realized that love without respect isn't love at all. I told him about Chicago, the art classes, the kids who reminded me that broken things can still be beautiful. At night, we walked through Boston Common, hands occasionally brushing but never holding. It was torture and comfort, both at once. One evening, snow began to fall again. He looked up, smiling softly. "Remember our first snow here? How could I forget? You tried to catch flakes on your tongue and nearly slipped into a trash can." He laughed, a sound that hit me like sunlight through frost. "You caught me before I fell." "Yeah," I said quietly. "But this time, I can't promise I'll do it again." He looked at me, then really looked. "You don't have to. Just let me walk beside you." And for a while we did. Just two people trying to rewrite their ending without erasing their past. On the fourth night, we sat on the rooftop, the city glowing beneath us. I asked the question that had been burning in my chest for months. "Did you love her?" He didn't flinch. "I thought I did. But it wasn't her. It was the version of myself I was with her before life got complicated, before the pressure. I wanted to feel young again. Stupid. Huh. Not stupid," I said. "Just human." He turned to me, eyes glassy. "But with you, Ethan, I felt real. And that scared the hell out of me. You saw everything, the ambition, the fear, the loneliness. And instead of running, you stayed. I didn't know how to handle that kind of love. The wind bit at my face, but I barely felt it. You could have just said that instead of breaking me." "I know." His voice was a whisper now. "If I could take it back." "You can't," I interrupted. "And maybe that's okay. Some things are meant to break us, so we learn how to hold better next time." He smiled sadly. "Do you think there's a next time for us?" I hesitated. "I think there's always a next time for kindness. Maybe not love, not the way it was, but something gentler." He nodded. We sat in silence, the city breathing below, the snow wrapping us in its fragile grace. The next morning I packed again. This time, not out of anger but acceptance. He stood by the door, watching. "So this is goodbye?" "For now," I said. "You have your life. I have mine. Maybe one day, they'll meet again." He stepped closer, his eyes searching mine. Can I hug you? I hesitated, then nodded. His arms came around me, warm and trembling. It wasn't passion. It wasn't desperation. It was gratitude, pure, aching gratitude. When we pulled apart, he whispered, "Thank you for coming back." I smiled faintly. "Thank you for letting me leave right this time." And then I walked away into the Boston morning, into the sound of the city waking, into the quiet truth that some loves don't need forever to be meaningful. A month later, a letter arrived. No phone call, no email. Just a handwritten envelope, my name in his neat, careful script. Inside was a short note. "Ethan, I'm learning to play piano. The therapist says it's good for the hands and the heart. Every time I hit the wrong key, I remember that sometimes the wrong notes make the most honest music. You were my most honest song. I hope Chicago is kind to you. M." I folded the letter, smiling through the sting in my eyes. Then I placed it in my sketchbook, between a drawing of him and a blank page, because maybe that's what closure is. A memory and a possibility side by side. That night, I went to the art center and started a new project with my students, love letters to the city. I told them to paint what they'd lost and what they'd learned. When it was my turn, I painted a rooftop, 2 silhouettes in the snow, and a city glowing beneath them. I titled it, "Forgiveness." A year passes faster than you think, especially when you start to live again. Chicago had become home in a way Boston never fully did. My days were filled with paint-stained hands, laughter from the kids at the art center, and small, ordinary joys: morning coffee at the corner cafe, sketching strangers by Lake Michigan, watching the city's skyline burn orange at sunset. Healing isn't a straight line. Some nights, I still dreamed of him, Michael, standing in that doorway with snow in his hair, whispering thank you for letting me leave right this time. But when I woke, it didn't hurt like before. The ache had softened, like a bruise that finally stopped throbbing. I was even seeing someone new: Lucas, another teacher at the center. He was kind, easy in all the ways Michael wasn't. He made me laugh, asked how my day was, remembered the answers. But some part of me, the quiet, buried part, still carried Michael like a faded photograph in the corner of my heart. Not as a wound, but as a lesson. Then one day, the past found me again, not through a call, not a letter, but a face. It was a cold March afternoon when the art center hosted a charity event at a hospital in downtown Chicago. We were asked to paint a mural in the pediatric wing, bright, hopeful, something to make the kids forget the IVs and sterile walls. When I walked in with my team, I wasn't thinking of him. I was thinking of the design, the logistics, the brushes, until I heard that voice, deep, calm, familiar enough to stop my heart. "Excuse me, could we keep that section clear for the equipment?" I turned, and there he was, Michael Sanders, standing a few feet away, clipboard in hand, wearing the same navy medical coat I once folded on our bed. His hair was shorter, neater, a few new lines around his eyes. He looked older, steadier, but when his gaze met mine, all that calm shattered. For a moment, neither of us moved. The room hummed around us, nurses chatting, children laughing, paint cans clinking, but between us, time froze. "Ethan," he breathed. My throat tightened. "Michael." He blinked like he couldn't believe I was real. "You're here. I could say the same about you." A nurse called his name, snapping the moment. He muttered something to her, then turned back to me. "Can we maybe after your shift, can we talk?" Part of me wanted to run. Another part wanted to hear every word he hadn't said last year. So I nodded. "Yeah, after." We worked in silence for the next few hours. The mural came alive, a swirl of colors, clouds, and children reaching for stars. I caught him watching sometimes, that same quiet admiration he used to have when I drew at our kitchen table. But he didn't say a word. When the event ended, the staff dispersed, and the sun dipped behind the buildings, he found me near the parking lot. "Coffee?" he asked. I hesitated, then smiled faintly. "You still remember my weakness." He chuckled softly. "Some things don't change." We walked to a cafe nearby, the kind of cozy, dim-lit place that smelled like cinnamon and second chances. We sat by the window. The silence between us was heavy but not hostile, just full. He finally spoke. I moved here 6 months ago. Transferred to Chicago General. I didn't know you were here. Small world, I said quietly. Or maybe the universe isn't done with us. I looked up. His eyes held that same depth, but this time, there was peace in them. No desperation, no guilt, just truth. So, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, how've you been? He smiled faintly. Better. Still learning. Still screwing up, but in smaller ways now. And the therapy? Still going. My therapist says healing isn't about fixing the past, it's about learning to live with it. I think she's right. I nodded. She is. He sipped his coffee, then said softly, You look happy, Ethan. I am, I said, and it wasn't a lie. Life's simpler now. I teach, paint. I sleep without waiting for a door to open. He winced, barely noticeable. I deserved that. Yeah, I said, but my tone was gentle. But it's not about deserving anymore. We sat in silence, watching the city lights flicker against the glass. Finally, he asked, Are you seeing someone? I hesitated. Yes. His name's Lucas. A faint smile tugged his lips. He's lucky. Maybe we both are, I said. We found what we needed, even if it wasn't each other. He nodded slowly. I wanted to hate that idea once. But now, I think I understand. Sometimes love's greatest act isn't staying. It's knowing when to let go. I stared at him, surprised. You've changed. He chuckled. That's what happens when you finally listen to the pain instead of running from it. We talked until the cafe lights dimmed. About everything and nothing: work, art, music, the weather. It felt like talking to an old friend you once wrote a novel with, both knowing the story's over but still loving the words. When we stepped outside, snow had started to fall, light, quiet, almost hesitant. He looked up, smiling. Chicago snow feels different. How so? It doesn't sting. It just lands. I laughed softly. Maybe it's you that's different. Maybe, he said. Or maybe I just finally learned to stop standing in the storm and start walking through it. We reached the corner where our paths split, his car to the left, my bus stop to the right. The air between us shimmered with unspoken things. I'm glad I saw you, he said. Me too. He hesitated, then added, Ethan, I'm not asking for another chance. I just needed to see that you're okay. That maybe I didn't ruin everything. I stepped closer, my breath visible in the cold. You didn't ruin me, Michael. You just reminded me that love has to start with self-worth. You broke me. Yeah, but you also taught me how to rebuild. His eyes glistened. Thank you. For what? For coming back twice. I smiled, soft and certain. This time I didn't come back. We just happened to meet again. And with that, I turned and walked away. Weeks passed. We didn't talk again, but sometimes I'd think of him, passing thought, fleeting warmth, no pain. That was new. Then, one morning, I arrived at the art center to find an envelope on my desk. No name on the front, just a hospital logo. Inside was a photo, the finished mural we'd painted, now framed on the pediatric wing wall. Beneath it, a small plaque, dedicated to the ones who taught us that healing takes courage. Art by Ethan Lewis and team. Donated by Dr. Michael Sanders. I stared at it for a long time, smiling through the blur in my eyes. That night, I went to Lake Michigan and sat by the shore, sketchbook in hand. The city lights shimmered on the water. The wind whispered through my scarf, the same one he once gave me. And for the first time in years, I felt completely still. I started to draw not him, not us, but something new. Two figures walking opposite directions on a snowy street, footprints fading behind them. Between them, a soft glow, not of loss, but of peace. I titled it, The Ones Who Let Go. Spring arrived quietly. The kids at the art center filled the halls with color again. Lucas and I grew closer, slow, steady, no promises, just presence. And one evening, while closing up, I received a text. Unknown number. You were right about the snow. I smiled. I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because some endings aren't about absence, they're about grace. A few months later, I had an art exhibition downtown, The Weight of Light. It was my first solo show. My hands shook the entire day. When the gallery opened, people wandered through, whispering, pointing, smiling. And there, in the center of the room, hung the painting that started it all, the rooftop scene, two silhouettes in the snow. The same one I'd titled, Forgiveness. I stood before it, remembering the moment I painted it, the ache, the release, the truth. Beautiful, a voice said beside me. I turned. Lucas. He smiled, slipping his arm around my shoulders. You ready for people to know your story? They'll see what they want to see, I said. That's the thing about art, it tells the truth quietly. He kissed my temple. You're amazing, you know that? I laughed softly. I'm learning to believe it. As the night ended and the crowd thinned, I caught a glimpse near the exit, a familiar silhouette watching from a distance. Michael. He didn't come closer. He didn't need to. He just smiled, nodded once, and slipped out into the city night. And that, I realized, was our real ending. No tears, no grand gesture. Just two people who once loved each other deeply, finally free to love themselves. Months later, I received another letter, this time from Boston General Hospital. Michael had started a foundation, the Ethan Lewis Art Therapy Program, for patients recovering from trauma, funded entirely by him. Inside the envelope was a note. You taught me that healing isn't about forgetting the pain, but finding beauty in it. I hope this helps others do the same. With gratitude, Michael. I cried then, not out of sadness, but something softer. Pride, peace, closure. Years later, people would ask me if I ever regretted leaving him. I'd smile and say, no. Because sometimes, the greatest love story isn't about two people staying together, it's about what they become after they break. And every time I pass by that mural in the hospital, I trace my fingers along the plaque and whisper, we made it, not as lovers, not as strangers, but as two men who learned that love, real love, is never wasted. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.